If I had a penny for every pen that I have, wait a minute, I did have more than a penny for every pen that I have. Anyways, the point is that even though I don't purposely collect pens, I do have quite a few supplies that have gathered throughout the years. You guys wanted to see them, so I'm gonna go through all of them, show you swatches. This storage thingy I made myself using foam boards, and I've written a whole blog post about it, but if you guys want, I can make a video tutorial on it as well. Alright, let's start off with markers, and the first set I'm going to show you guys is the Crayola Supertips in the 50 pack. I love everything about these. First off, they're super affordable. This 50 pack costs somewhere around $10 on Amazon. That's like 20 cents a marker, which is amazing. Their tip allows you to create thick and thin lines, and believe it or not, you can even use these for calligraphy, which I'm going to show you later on in the video. I love the color range on these. Some of them are more vibrant and others are more muted or pastel, and you'll be happy to hear that these markers don't bleed through the Leuchtturm unless you go over the paper multiple times. Obviously they're not the highest quality ever, but for the price I have absolutely no complaints. The Crayola Supertips come in a variety of packs, and I also have the 24 pack, which I'm going to show you as well. They look a bit different, but they're the same thing. I have to say I love the color selection on the 50 pack more, just because that one has more subtle and pastel colors, so if you're gonna get one of these, I recommend the 50 pack. I mean, the price difference isn't that high, so it's really worth it. I'm sure you know the zebra MyLiners, right? They have been everywhere. I'm not going to talk too much about these because I have a full review on my blog, but basically one of the ends has a bold tip, kind of looks like a highlighter, and the other one is a fine tip. As far as the colors go, these are called MyLiners and not highlighters for a reason, because the colors are softer, you know, they're more muted, and only 3 of the markers are actually neon, so just keep that in mind. But I actually think that's the whole reason why a lot of people like them so much. They're a bit on the pricier side, so actually the Crayola markers that I showed previously are pretty good dupes as far as colors go, and you can create thick and thin lines with both. So yeah, if you have the Crayola, I say you're not really missing out on the MyLiners. Okay, I got these next ones thinking they were the Pentel brush pens that you can use for calligraphy, but nope, not even close. The tips are very stiff and there's no way you can use these for calligraphy, so yeah, that's what you get when shopping online. But the colors are nice. Moving on to the Stabilo 68, these are like smaller tip markers. I'm not sure what you'd call them. I only have 8 colors of them. They're nice and they don't bleed through. Next, I have a set of very similar pens from WHSmith, which I got from London, and these are nothing particularly special, but again, they were super affordable. The colors are nice and vibrant, and they don't bleed through the paper at all. Okay, next category, Fineliners. I feel there's kind of a debate which brand of Fineliners is the best. I'm gonna start off with the ones I think are the most popular. They're the Faber-Castell Pit Artist pens. These are affordable, they're nice quality, and they come in a lot of thicknesses ranging from really fine to bold, and they write really smoothly and they don't bleed through. Next are my favorite Fineliners at the moment, which are the Staedtler pigment liners. I bought these in a set of 6, and they also come in a great range of thicknesses that I use in my bullet journal as well as for drawings. I'm also swatching all the other Fineliners I have, including the Pigma Micron, which is also really popular, and the Sharpie pens. I wouldn't really know how to explain the differences between these brands because once they're on paper, you can't really tell. I mean, okay, if I had to say something, I would say that the Staedtlers are the richest black, while the Sharpies are the least black, but all of them write really smoothly, at least until the tips wear down, and you can see that the tips are really similar. So if you're debating between these brands, I suggest giving them all a try, so when you run out of one, just try the other. Next, I'm going to be comparing my colored Fineliners, and the first ones are the Stabilo .88 in the mini size, and then the Staedtler Fineliners. And again, with these, I feel like there's not much of a difference. The only thing I would maybe say is that the Staedtlers are like a tiny bit more vibrant, but it just probably seems that way because the tips I think are a little bit thicker. What I love about the Staedtlers though is that they come in a case that can also be turned into a stand, which is awesome because they're really accessible that way, so that's definitely a plus. This set of pens is actually a really interesting one. They're gel pens, but the colors are very similar to highlighters. I initially thought they were going to be pastel, but most of them are quite neon, so I don't use them as much, but nonetheless I think they're really nice, and they also seem to have the least amount of ghosting out of all of my pens. The Tombow dual brush pens are probably the most popular brush markers out there, and for a good reason. The quality is amazing and there are so many things you can use them for, including calligraphy. As the name suggests, they are dual-ended, meaning they have kind of like a felt tip brush at one end and a regular fine tip at the other. The colors I'm swatching here all came in a set, but if you're gonna get these, I really recommend buying them individually, because in sets they look nice, but you'll most likely get a few colors that you're never gonna use. Because they're water-based, they can also be used with water, however not all the colors spread that well. You can see that this red one is kind of hard to pick up, but just keep in mind that this works a lot better on watercolor paper. A cool trick you can do with these is touching two of the markers at the tip and letting the ink basically flow from one to the other, and then when you write you're gonna get this really nice gradient effect. Eventually the pen cleans itself, so you don't have to worry about staining the tips. The next set is the Zig Clean Color Real Brush Pens, and the color circles you see at the top of the caps are actually swatches I made myself, and I stuck them on with clear nail polish just so I'd be able to see what they look like with and without water. These are also watercolor brush pens, but unlike the Tombows, they have synthetic bristles, so you'll get a very similar feel as if you were using actual watercolors with a brush. They perform really well with water, the color spreads evenly, and you can create really cool effects with these. Just be careful though, because they will bleed through if you use too much water or if the paper is too thin. You can achieve the same effect as with the Tombows, so if you touch the pens for a few seconds, then you will also get that gradient effect. Since I've been talking about these brush markers, let me also show you how I use them for calligraphy together with other supplies I use for this purpose. So the first ones are the Tombow Fudenosuke, which come in hard tip and soft tip brushes. I feel like the soft one is a little bit easier to use, so it's more beginner friendly, but in the end it comes down to personal preference. Both have really nice and rich black ink, and they don't bleed through the paper except if you go really slowly. Then we have the Tombow dual brush tips, which I've shown you earlier, and these are the best brush markers you'll find for calligraphy. They are so easy to use, and the tip is absolutely perfect for creating thick and thin strokes. Very similar to the Tombows are the Sakura Koi brush pens. They're a little less expensive and the tip is very similar, except it's a tiny bit softer and not as bouncy, so if you're a beginner like me, you might get shakier lines at first, but otherwise they're great dupes. Another great calligraphy tool is the Wink of Stella brush. The tip has actual synthetic bristles, so it takes a bit more time to get the hang of it compared to the Tombows, for instance, but these come in such pretty colors and they also have glitter. You can also use the Zig brushes for calligraphy, but again, since they have synthetic bristles, it just takes a bit more practice to get clean lines. And finally, we have the Crayola Supertips again, and since the tip is really stiff, you can see that it takes a bit more practice. I was actually going way too slowly, and that's why my lines aren't consistent, but I've seen other people work magic with these, so it just goes to show that it's all in the practice and not in the tools, I guess. The pens I'm showing you now are all from the HAPPIE SCRAPPIE pen boxes, which is a monthly subscription box. So every month you get all sorts of writing supplies like fountain pens, markers, calligraphy brushes, highlighters, gel pens, you get the point. So I only have 2 fountain pens, both of which I got from these boxes, and the first one is the Pilot Petite with a fine tip, and it came with this gorgeous blue ink. This writes really smoothly, and as far as I've seen, all Pilot fountain pens are really nice. I don't know what brand this next one is, but it has a really interesting tip and I really like how fine it is. This is actually the one I use the most. This next one is the Uniball Air Micro, which is kind of like a regular pen, but it was actually designed to replicate the feeling of a fountain pen. The only downside is that this does bleed through quite a bit, so I wouldn't recommend it for thin paper. Otherwise, I really like it. And here I'm just swatching some of the pens that I got in the HAPPIE SCRAPPIE boxes, and I really recommend these if you're like me and you want to try out different writing supplies. For example, I got one of the zebra MyLifeiners in the boxes, so I got to try them out before ordering all the packs like a crazy person. Moving on to colored pencils, and the only set I have is from Faber-Castell, and they're called the Color Grip pencils. I wouldn't say these are the softest pencils, but you can build up the color if you go over multiple times. What's special about these is that they're actually watercolor pencils, so you can either use them as regular pencils or you can add water to create that water effect. And you can see they perform quite nicely and this color spreads evenly when you add the water, and to my surprise there is no bleed through on the other side. For this last page, I'm going to talk about the writing supplies you can erase. So the first ones are the Pilot friction pens. In case you're not familiar with these, they are pens that can be erased through friction actually. So if you make a lot of mistakes like me, these are perfect. One thing to note though is that they will also fade or even erase if they're exposed to high enough heat. So yeah, just a heads up on that. The pencils I use for drawing are the Koh-i-Noor graphite pencils, which come in a set of different hardness scales. If you don't know, this just basically means how hard the graphite is, so you can see that the softer the pencil, the darker and wider the strokes are. These pencils are great quality and I use them a lot for sketching and drawing. And finally, the pencils that I've been using religiously since probably the first grade are the Rotring mechanical pencils. I prefer these over regular pencils for sketching in my bullet journal, for example, because I don't have to worry about sharpening them, and they also have a small eraser at the top, which comes in handy. And speaking of erasers, my favorite one is the Stabilo exam grade. It's the black one and I love it because it's soft and it doesn't leave any marks whatsoever. Alright, we are finally finished. That was a lot to go through, but I really hope this video was helpful, and if it was, I do apologize to your wallets in advance. Don't forget that all the links are in the description together with timestamps, and if you have any questions, I'll see you in the comments. Alright, if you enjoyed, you know what to do, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!